So this is sort of a follow-up to my previous video where I talked about the 3 eras of Magic the Gathering collector boxes, starting with Eldraine, moving to Commander Legends, and then from Kaldheim to March of the Machines, and then from Lord of the Rings till now. And I want to focus on the Lord of the Rings until now because they are the boxes that are most talked about now, the boxes that are most sought after. People are into the newness for Magic, when in previous periods they often went back to earlier Magic and were excited about things from the 90s, things even from the early 2000s, things from 2008 and 2012 and that kind of stuff. But now the focus is almost entirely on the new Magic. So these collector boxes themselves are probably going to outperform the previous sets of collector boxes, and I just wonder how much and by how much and what's going to happen. So we got Lord of the Rings collector boosters, the green box, and we were still globally, there was a pretty bad market and things weren't going so well, but Lord of the Rings did really, really well, right? So much so that they then reprinted them in the Christmas edition. Not exactly a reprint because it didn't have the same serialized cards. It had different treatments on cards, and it was interesting. But for the most part, it was same enough of the Lord of the Rings that it was the same, seen as the same thing back then, and they didn't want the people that didn't buy it thought that Magic was double dipping, and they didn't want to put their money towards it, which is why they're now worth way more than any other collector box because nobody bought them. So I'm wondering what happens with the other collector boxes, because so you have Commander Masters come out, and it did very, very badly, and those collector boxes and the boxes themselves have started to drift up in price because I don't know if anyone's noticed, but they're starting to disappear. They drifted up the price of distribution, and most distributors don't even have them anymore. So now we'll see what Commander Masters does, but it did poorly at first. So, and the Commander Masters collector boxes did poorly as well. And then you moved into Eldraine, and it actually did better. And it started to seem like things might be turning around and going for the better. But again, they didn't do great. And then we moved into Ixalan, and it did much better. But again, not great, just much better. And the collector boxes themselves quickly disappeared. And this seems to be where the changes to the print runs happened. Maybe they'd been reducing them slightly previously, but I think it was a great deal and solidified this price run reduction around this time. And of course, the print runs for the the Lord of the Rings special Christmas edition also had severely reduced print runs, and then so did Ravnica Remastered collector boxes, and even Karlov Manor collector boxes, though the set didn't do well and the collector boxes didn't sell well, so there are still some of them out there. And then you moved into Outlaws at Thunder Junction, and it was quite clear that these collector boxes were now completely one and done, and they would disappear rather quickly, or at least quicker than they had in the past. Outlaws at Thunder Junction collector boxes didn't disappear on release day. There's still some out there in the wild. And it wasn't a set that was really people were really excited about. So the fact that they aren't undervalued or that they aren't being discounted and tried and moved quickly right now means that the print run is quite low despite the set not doing well. A little bit better than Karlov Manor. But then Bloomburrow came out, and that was the most exciting set for people of that year, I think. And it, those collector boxes disappeared almost immediately. Duskmourn, not at the level of Bloomburrow, but certainly above Outlaws at Thunder Junction, and any of the previous things from Lord of the Rings up till that point. And they did quite well, but there's still some collector boxes out there, not as much as Outlaws of Thunder Junction. And then Foundations came out and confused everybody because those collector boxes just disappeared on release day, and they did as well. And Foundations might I don't know, maybe financially Foundations has done as well as Bloomborough, which is not to be expected because it was seen as a core set and people don't find core sets exciting. But maybe just the rebranding of it as Foundations convinced enough people that they are interested in those things. And Foundations was really good. I liked everything that came with Foundations, and the fact that it's going to be in print for that long and doing so well is pretty great. Then we had Innistrad Remastered, and people were lackluster on it, but the collector boxes are gone. So the collector boxes are going to be going up in price because there's not many of them out there. Oh, I forgot one, Assassin's Creed, where everyone discounted it, and they didn't discount it as they weren't interested in it, and they skipped it. And so far, the collector boxes haven't gone up in value, and they haven't really disappeared, but they are getting very, very slim out there on TCG Player or eBay or whatever. So there's very few of those, but people have ignored it even up till this point, and maybe that will continue to be the case. I don't know. But anyway, so then we get to Aether Drift, and Aether Drift, people weren't that excited about the set, and on release they weren't super hyped about it, and so there's still some collector boxes around, but again, not that many, and not certainly to the level of Crimson Vow and Midnight Hunt, where you can still get those at distribution. You can still get them for very cheap at almost any store. So the fact that Aether Drift, and Karlov Manor, seen as two poor sets, people not interested in, and yet their collector boxes are more expensive and harder to get than Crimson Vow and Midnight Hunt, and even probably Kaldheim and Strixhaven. So that is a good contrast to tell us that we're in a completely different market, if you didn't know it already. So now we've got Tarkir Dragonstorm, which everyone was expecting to be maybe Aether Driftish, not Karlov Manor, maybe Outlaws at Thunder Junction, but I think people undervalued the excitement regular Magic people have for sets that they remember from the past, or Tarkir and Dragons especially. So I think that a lot of the online discussion was ignoring the other 95% of people who are not involved in the online discussion. They're just buying Magic and they're playing Magic wherever they're playing it. It's probably not even at an FLGS. It's probably in their basement with their friends, on deployment, whatever. They're not involved in the online discussion. So we're generally not hearing their opinions, or if we are, they're largely being ignored because it's a one-off person maybe posting on a forum, and then everyone else is like, no, everyone else thinks this. So what I'm saying is that nobody was expecting Tarkir to go gangbusters, and it did. And now their boxes are expensive and hard to find, and it's only been, a month? And we're coming up on Final Fantasy, and in pre-orders, their boxes are gone. So I don't know what this means for Age of Eternities, Spider-Man, and Avatar, but I do know that these boxes are, of the three eras of collector boxes, are pretty successful in comparison, and I don't know into the future whether, this era wins, right? Does it still continue to win, or do people realize that maybe from Eldraine to Commander Legends, those are the better boxes, harder to find boxes? I don't know. It's a little bit skewed, because normally the older things are the more expensive things because they've already been opened. There's less of them out there, that kind of thing. But in this case, we're in reverse, where, it's kind of sandwich, actually. So you have from Eldraine to Commander Legends, their boxes are doing fine. They're higher in value than they were when they came out. And then you have this era where almost all of them are higher in value than when they came out. And then the middle era from Kaldheim to March of the Machines, they're pretty much all doing poorly, just not as poorly as they used to be doing. And I just wonder, into the future, what happens to these different eras of collector boxes, and does that shift? Does the first era become more expensive? Does the and overtake this current era, or does this current era just take off into the sunset, or as a dark horse, does the middle era of the Crimson Vows and the Midnight Hunt suddenly those become more valuable than the others? That seems unlikely, but I wanted to bring up the dark side or the dark horse scenario. So let me know what you think of these eras, and specifically these new boxes, and where you think they're going and how they compare to the other eras. Anyway, let me know.